Just want to start things off by welcoming everyone to tonight's first-time home buying seminar. My name's Clay Burris, and I'm the broker owner of the Burris Realty Group here at Century 21 Sheets, and we serve Indianapolis and all of Central Indiana. Tonight, I am lucky to be joined by three of my team members, Chris Oakes, Zach Hill, Megan Johnston, and we have a very special guest, Eric McMillan from Fairway Mortgage, who is our trusted lending partner in the real estate community. So tonight, basically, it's going to run through 10 questions that are commonly asked by first-time home buyers. So we're going to cover those in depth, and then we'll save some time for some Q&A at the end. So if you're listening and you have a question that didn't get answered, just type it in the chat on the Zoom or in the comments on our Facebook live stream. And Emily on our team will be monitoring those and get them to us where we can answer them for you at the end of the presentation this evening. So with that, let's get into it. I think we start off with probably the most common question that we get as a team all the time, especially right now, and that's how's the market? So Zach, I'm going to hand it over to you to tackle that one.
Thanks, Clay. Yeah, the market remains fast-paced and competitive, much like it's been for the last 2 years. Why is this? It really always points back to supply and demand. Active inventory of houses is at an all-time low, and demand remains strong. And so these factors usually result in multiple offers on many different price points, probably like you're hearing these days. I know that for me, we used to be able to depend on new construction if we had a buyer that was having trouble buying a pre-existing house. But even now, new construction is having trouble catching up with the demand. And you might say, well, where is the demand coming from? Well, what I've seen personally, and I'll be curious what my teammates are seeing, largely, not only do we have people in our communities that simply want to move around for whatever their reasons are, we're seeing buyers come from outside of Indianapolis, move to the area, even out of state. We're seeing local investors become much more active. Investing is as popular as it's ever been. And if it's not local investors, it's investor groups or investors from abroad coming in as well, seeing our prices in our market and competing there. And so it's a tough time to be a first-time home buyer, but don't give up. And we'll talk about that later. What are you guys seeing in terms of the market?
Exactly what you said, Zach. I mean, influx of investor buyers, limited inventory because of the pandemic, as just put a crunch on it across the board. So super competitive out there for sure.
Well, let's talk about interest rates. The next thing when people talk to us about real estate, they'll ask, how's the market? And then they'll ask us about interest rates. And there's certainly a lot of buzz about that these days. And so I'm going to toss it over to Eric McMillan with Fairway, and he's going to answer the question, what do you think will happen with interest rates?
Hey, Zach, thank you. Good evening, everyone. And, the first thing that I would say is if anybody truly knew what would happen with rates, they'd be living on an island and not working every day, right? So only thing we can go is based off of what the denominators or what the factors are that affect interest rates, what we're seeing in the market, the great prognosticators and what they estimate. And right now we are in a rising interest rate market, okay? I'm sure everybody's hearing those buzzwords. You're hearing the words inflation. You can't turn on the TV and not hear about the word inflation and things of that sort. And it is real. But I think it's important to kind of understand a little bit, Zach, what does that have to do with mortgage rates, right? Inflation. When inflation hits, that means that consumer demand is going up, incomes are going up, things of that sort, to help temper to make sure the economy doesn't grow at a rate that it's not prepared for. Rates go up. So a lot of times you may hear that the rates are going up, that the Feds raise interest rates. And there is belief that the Feds will raise rates a couple times in 2022. that does not mean automatically that mortgage rates flow or go with those adjustments. A lot of times they do, but if for instance the Fed raise the overnight lending rate by 0.25%, that doesn't mean that mortgage rates automatically are 0.25% higher as well. So those are two separate entities. A lot of times they do follow each other. And then, so inflation is something to be aware of moving forward. And then the second thing is there's what's been called there's mortgage-backed securities, which I won't go into a real in-depth conversation on that, but just know that the government has been involved in purchasing of mortgage-backed securities really since about the beginning of 2009. For those of you that may remember the housing crash, the government did get involved to help stimulate that market, to help with interest rates and making home buying affordable from a rate perspective. And for years and years, there's been talk of the federal government, what's called tapering or easing out of the buying of those mortgage-backed securities. And we're actually going to see that. We started to see that. We will see that into 2022. So that's another thing that will affect interest rates a little bit. But the thing, everybody, to understand is we are still at a time and place where interest rates are at historically low numbers. Okay, I know a lot of people. There are probably some people on this webinar that weren't even alive in the 1980s or early 1980s when interest rates, believe it or not, were in the high teens. 17% for a mortgage interest rate. But I'll even say just over 3 years ago, rates were over 5%. Okay, so that is recent history where rates are much higher than where they are today. Rates right now are in the high threes, low fours, depending upon product and that sort of thing. Credit scores, different things that go into an interest rate, but it really in the the 3.75 to 3.99 range right now. So remember, don't panic. Okay, ebbs and flows of the market, still historically really, really low rates. So thanks for that question, Zach. And the question I have, Megan, is now the time to buy?
So that is a really common question, especially in the market we've been experiencing, whether or not it is a good time to buy. And absolutely, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be easy. And a lot of people tell us, I'm just going to wait until the market slows down, maybe rent for another year. We, as realtors, feel it's a great time to buy right now because prices are likely going to continue to increase due to the low inventory levels. And there's signs pointing to multiple mortgage rate increases like Eric just mentioned. Therefore, we feel like it's in your best interest to kind of put your best foot forward now and compete for a home, even if you end up paying a little more than the list price, because that same house is likely going to be or is going to cost more in time anyways. So at a minimum, we always like to say as your agents, we want to at least have that starting conversation with you and to better understand your real estate goals and needs. And that'll help determine if now is the right time for you specifically, because it could vary person to person. But having that conversation is definitely the first step that we can absolutely assist with. I'm actually going to kick it back to you, Eric, to talk about what a home buyer should expect when it comes to money and a down payment.
Sure, that's a great question. And I've been fortunate enough to be in this industry originating mortgage loans for over 22 years. And one of the questions that I get the most and that there's more misinformation on is, do I need 20% down to buy a home? That answer is unequivocally no. Okay. There are many products and programs available for a first-time home buyer. For instance, there's down payment assistance program where depending upon income guidelines. There is an income limit that is in play with these programs, but essentially you can come to the closing table with zero out of pocket, okay, zero down payment for you with, there's Indiana Housing down payment assistance programs that are available. And we have a couple other niche type products that are available where there may be a zero down payment. Also, conventional loans aren't the only type of loan that somebody can get. You know, I always hear, is it 20% down on a conventional loan? No, no, no. The down payment assistance programs, as I just mentioned, there's both conventional and government. But for our veterans out there, or our men and women that are currently serving, there are a VA loan. That is a zero down payment, 0% down payment program that is offered to veterans and folks that are currently serving. FHA loans require a 3.5% down payment. You do not have to be a first-time home buyer. That's another misnomer out there, is that you can only do FHA if you're a first-time home buyer. That's not correct. But that's a 3.5% down payment. So every $100,000 that a person would borrow, that's $3,500 in down payment that would be required. USDA in rural areas, USDA is offered. Same, there are some income limits on that, and you have to be in certain areas, but that's a 0% down payment option as well. And then you have conventional products that vary. You can go as little as 3% down on some products with conventional loans, all the way up to 50, 60, 70%. The key with the conventional product is you might hear of what's called PMI. That stands for private mortgage insurance. And if one puts less than 20% down on a home, they will have PMI in some form or fashion. But there are a couple different options we can look at there that can lower the monthly part of what that would look like, or eliminate it completely. But it will vary. Those sorts of things will vary based upon your credit score, down payment, those sorts of things. So really important that you deal with a professional, because not every loan or not every person fits in the same type of loan. Okay, so it's very important. Your scenario, your situation may lend to being best suited for a conventional loan, maybe a VA loan, maybe a down payment assistance loan. And working with a professional in the industry, we're going to be able to tap into all the different programs that are available that best suits your needs. Okay, and that's very important. Same thing with realtors. Pick a professional to work with. I see 4 great ones on my screen right now that know the market, know where things are going, know where things have been. It's important to know where things have been and have an idea of where things are going. So the Burris Realty Group is I've been blessed to partner with this team for well over right at a decade, and really excited about that. And then the last question I get a lot of times is, well, what are closing costs? Who pays for closing costs? What are they? And can they be rolled in? And things of that sort. Well, unfortunately, you can't roll in closing costs to a loan amount. Okay, and closing costs are going to include lender fees, whatever the lenders may have. That will include their underwriting fees, maybe admin fees. Appraisal fees are part of closing costs. The title fees, you know, to make sure that you are protected and that you are on title and on the deed, and they process that through. So there are title fees. And then you know, you have what's called third-party fees. I touched on that already, but you're going to have those, and then you're going to have taxes and insurances that you have to escrow for. But so those are the costs that are included in a loan. A lot of times on purchases, you can negotiate who pays for the closing costs, and I'll leave that explanation most to the professionals on the screen here. But the closing costs are a part of the process. They do have to be paid at time of closing. And if Fairway gives you a quote of the cash to close, it will include your down payment and any and all costs. And it is given to you in what's called a loan estimate, so that every fee is disclosed to you upfront, and that those numbers cannot change. All right. So hopefully that answers that question, Megan. And if not, I'm sure, or I hope that people will ask questions. But I want to kick it over to Chris, because I know some people. I have a family member that's in a lease now, but he's thinking about buying a home. He doesn't know when he should start looking. Should he start now? Does he have to wait until the lease is up? Then where does he stay during that time? So Chris, could you share a little bit? I'm in a lease. When should I start looking?
Yeah, definitely an important question, especially given the fast-paced market that we're in now. So if we kind of work backwards to answer that question, it typically takes 30 to 45 days to close after you have an accepted offer. So you're looking at a month and a half. But then obviously you need some time before the accepted offer to actually get out and find the house. And this is going to kind of vary buyer to buyer. So some people buy the first house that they walk into. Some people need a little bit more time. So it could take a few days up to a few months. We generally recommend you start looking anywhere between 4 and 6 months before your lease is up. That gives you plenty of time to get your financing in order, kind of put your team together with your realtor, your lender, title company, things of that nature. So 4 to 6 months before your lease is up is pretty good timing. Now it's not an exact science. If you start looking 4 to 6 months beforehand and you write an offer early on, there's a few things to consider. First of all, your first mortgage payment won't be due until the first full month after you close. So I guess to explain that in more detail, say you close in mid-May, you would have the rest of May free. You would have the rest of June free. Your first payment would be due July 1st. So that gives you a little bit of time to kind of get out of your current lease and settle into your new mortgage payment. Another thing to consider is we've had some success in the past negotiating with landlords to figure out what that early payment penalty is, or sometimes we can negotiate out of the contract early on if it's a win-win for both the renter and the landlord. I've done it myself on a few occasions. I know of many other instances where that happens. And then just to add one more thing to this question, I think you see on HGTV a lot of times the agent shows 3 houses and then you have to choose from one of the 3 houses. It doesn't work like that in real life. I've had clients that bought the very first house that we walked into because they absolutely loved it. I've also had clients that I've worked with for close to a year, and we've seen 40 or 50 houses, and that's okay. I always tell people, it's the biggest financial decision that you're going to make in your life. It's worth taking the time to do it if that's what you need. I think the national average, or maybe the Indiana average that we saw recently, was most people look at 8 homes on average. So that's just kind of a middle of the road number. There's no rule exactly on that. So hope that answers the question. I guess the next question I'm going to throw over to Zach would be, what kind of research should I be doing to kind of get my home search going?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Buyers in today's market need to know the areas where they're looking to buy. It's one thing to look at the houses on your phone in your search and find something that you're excited to go see. But there's a strong chance that you'll have to make a quick decision when you find a home that you want to buy. And so the better educated you are about the houses in that neighborhood and what's around it, the more educated you can be at this time. It can feel overwhelming. It is a big decision to make. And so what we want you to have as much confidence as possible when you get to that point. How can you be more familiar with the area? If time allows it, we'd encourage you to look at more than the online photos. Drive around the community. Use the online map if you can't drive around, to look around and make sure there isn't anything across the road or just around the corner that might give you a reason to not move there. Also, you could look into public record websites to confirm the information necessary to you. For example, schools, crime rates, etc. Because, and what most new buyers don't know is your agent won't be able to share this information with you due to fair housing laws. Now, often that sometimes is what catches buyers off guard. They go, well, is this a safe place to live? Or what do you think about the schools here? And as realtors, we absolutely want to do everything we can to serve a buyer and help them feel confident about their decision. But there are, in fact, laws in place that prevent us from sharing that with you. And so just in summary, there's a lot of information online outside of just looking at the pictures to support your home search. And we encourage any new buyer with whatever time you have to get familiar with the market you're wanting to buy in, again, for that confidence, because it will feel like a lot. We guarantee that. We're here again to support you every step of the way. Well, let's say you do find a house that you want to buy in today's market. You write up an offer, and there's a good chance you are prepared either from your BRG agent or from your friends or the news to combat a bidding war. Have you heard of a bidding war before? I'm going to kick it over to Megan Johnston to ask, what is a bidding war?
Yes. So bidding war, sometimes also referred to as like a multiple offer situation. It's basically when a seller receives more than one competing offer for their home that you are interested in. This can be a little overwhelming for a lot of buyers. Sometimes buyers may think, well, I don't even have a shot, but we're here to help you with that. And they also buyers also assume that that means they're overpaying for a home. Having an excellent real estate agent on your side, such as any of us here at Team BRG, is highly beneficial to you because we can help navigate a variety of different strategies that go beyond just the price. It's not always just the price that we are looking at when we're helping you with an offer, to kind of help you set you apart from the competition and all these other offers that the seller may have received. So I don't want to go into too much detail because I actually want to let Clay kind of talk to you about some of those strategies of what can set you apart when submitting that offer.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. This is super important in this competitive market, as we have already unpacked. And it's not all about price. Every buyer is in their unique position on what they're comfortable doing and what they're capable of doing. So I'm just going to share some general successful strategies that our team has used over the last year and a half to help our clients win some of these multiple offers. Again, doesn't mean it's the right answer for you. So I would suggest you talk to your agent about your specific scenario if you were to get into a multiple offer scenario. But these are some general ones. And it starts with writing a clean offer. Eric touched on closing cost earlier in his comments, and that's a big factor that, as he unpacked, can be negotiated between buyer and seller as far as who's paying those. Well, if we're competing for the house, then we might want to try at all costs to keep those on the buyer's side, so we're not asking the seller to pay extra fees such as the closing cost. Home warranties and surveys of the lot are other examples of fees that are negotiated in the contract. And so if you're in a multiple offer situation, you just want to keep it, as we call, as clean as possible. And you also want to not have a home to sell or a contingency involved. Now, we're talking to hopefully first-time home buyers this evening, so that's probably not a problem for you. And in fact, actually gives you a leg up maybe on some of your competition out there that does have a house to sell. So maybe you don't have as much money to throw at it as another buyer, but maybe that other buyer has a home to sell. So there's still opportunities for you as a first-time buyer to come out ahead. Some other strategies that we've used this past year and a half are appraisal gaps. Eric mentioned a little bit about appraisals earlier in his conversation. If you don't know what that is, the lender is going to require a third-party appraiser go out to the house and give their opinion of the value of the home. So in a quick summary, if the value comes in short of what we're offering to pay for the house, we've seen a lot of buyers be able to guarantee some of that money up front so it doesn't come out of the seller's pocket and keep the deal moving forward. And that's very attractive to home sellers. Inspection assurances is another big topic right now. The last thing a seller wants to do is be nitpicked over the condition of the house with small repairs and things. So if you can offer some assurances to the seller that you're not going to do that, whether that's buying the house as is, or maybe just putting a dollar amount cap on the amount of repairs that you would ask for. It still allows you to have the inspections and protect yourself as the buyer, and so that you know what type of house you're getting, and the ability to walk away. Just we're assuring the seller that you're not going to ask for unnecessary repairs or small repairs. Working with the seller's timeline is something that often costs you as the buyer nothing. Maybe the seller needs some extra possession because of where they're going in their move. So maybe they need possession of the house for a period after closing. So those are things that we can do to negotiate that costs nothing out of your pocket other than some time. So there's lots of ways to structure an offer. There's lots of moving parts. Goes back to what Megan said, is having a great agent on your side can make all the difference in helping set up the strategy that's right for you to negotiate and possibly beat out those other buyers. One thing else I want to hit on before we move on is you've probably heard of what we'll call love letters. Essentially where a buyer will write a letter to the seller about who they are, why they want to buy their home, and all of that. It's happened a ton over the years. Well, fair housing laws have kind of come into play, or fair housing issues, I should say, have come into play with that recently. So we as agents are no longer allowed to share those with a seller. So if you've heard your friends talk about that in the past, that was probably a question you may have. We're no longer allowed to share those as agents, just to protect any fair housing issues that may arise because of that. So with that said, I think that the next big question that a lot of buyers have, especially over this crazy past year and a half, is, how is COVID, how is this pandemic impacting the local real estate market at this point in time? So I'm going to pass it over to Chris so he can unpack that for you guys.
Sure. Good question. So from what we've kind of seen over the last couple of years, the pandemic has kind of shifted people's opinions on what they need in their home. With lots of people quarantining and kind of staying indoors, room for a home office, maybe a gym, entertainment area has become more important. Spending more time in the home, so just trying to make it more comfortable there. With that, a lot of people have been given the opportunity to work from home. So we have more people looking for a home office, spending more time in the house. Another thing is that buyers are willing to live a little bit further from their job because they're working from home. So kind of opens up, people's search area, kind of lets them look in a little bit further out. And then on the new construction side of things, labor and supply chain issues have kind of affected how new homes are built, which also kind of adds to the inventory shortage. Where we used to see the ability to go to new construction and kind of custom order a home. A lot of builders now are doing spec homes, and we've even seen waiting lists even for new construction. So hopefully that answers the question. I know we've thrown a lot of information at you guys. Hopefully it's all helpful. Hopefully it all makes sense. And maybe the biggest question you have on your mind is, where do I get started? What should I do next? Clay, what advice could you give for that question?
Yeah, that's the big question after all this, right? And I think the first step for any first-time buyer in the process is build your team. And what do I mean by team? That's a real estate agent that you can trust and has experience in this marketplace, in the market, in the area that you're looking in. And right alongside that, just as important, is your lender. So you need a lender that you can talk to and trust. We love having somebody local and on the ground here in this marketplace. We live in a world where a lot of that can be done online, but it's a big investment, and you need somebody to walk you through those steps. So we love referring somebody that's local, knows the local Indiana programs, because not every state has the same loan programs available, and so that allows us oh, my screen went away. Sorry about that. So that allows you to have a team on your side that you can trust, you can speak to, and is there for you on a day-to-day basis. So that's really the first step, and it's that simple. If you're a good agent's going to sit you down and walk you through all the other steps that we've kind of unpacked today. And so whether you're 12 months or 18 months out even, it's never too early to start talking. We all offer free consultations. I can speak for Eric confidently that he will talk to you for free as well, and put you a plan in place to help you succeed and achieve your goals.